And I guess that's the cool thing about construction is it's a double-edged sword. It's very fragmented, which is cool because anybody can go. I think it's one of the only places the American dream is still readily available. One of the few industries, because if you look around, most other industries are so consolidated nowadays. It's like good luck becoming a toothpaste company, for example, or you want to go make phones? That's cute. But anybody can go be a contractor. But then the other side of the coin is the fragmentation works against the industry because you have these consolidated industries where the CEOs all get together, they have golf, they make sure everything's good to go for their industry before they go beat each other up. And we don't necessarily do that in this world.
No, and you look at private equity, there's $5 trillion looking for deals. Roll-up strategy is really attractive. Obviously, HVAC companies have been a big target for consolidation.
Yep.
Leveraging technology, AI, and a kind of either you can keep up or you can't. And I would imagine construction will have its consolidation just like any other.
It's starting to. I think there's some barriers to consolidation, but ready mix concrete, asphalt, and rock aggregate has really consolidated over the past few decades.
Interesting.
And I think construction's the consolidation's going to happen because a lot of construction companies don't have a succession plan. And so I've seen a lot of it is aging out, and you hit another market slowdown and you have these older guys that have been doing it for 40 years and they don't want to go through another 2008, 2010. They're like, I've made my money. I'm not going to go brawl it out again. I don't have the energy or desire to do that. And that's when, this private equity money will be there. It's interesting too, because we've raised money over the past 2.5 years and I've learned about this world that I knew nothing about prior. And with the change in interest rates, so all of these companies these funds raised crazy amounts of money. I mean, tens of billions, hundreds of billions. You said trillion. There's literally trillions of dollars there that they've raised. But then the interest rates and the landscape changed dramatically. So they've all kind of paused a little bit. And I've all been looking around, what's going on. And the more they wait, the more there is pressure to go deploy that capital. It's just this weird world.
Yeah, and you're going to look at returns, so even the interest rate goes up, you're going to look for bigger, better returns, and maybe you can get that by consolidating. I think it's interesting that you pointed out the demographics. The demographics of the United States are pretty good comparative to other countries, like China is sort of the world's largest nursing home.
Sure.
But I'm wondering how many younger people are coming into construction generally, because college seems to be so promoted as sort of the pinnacle of what it is a person can do. It's not necessary in construction, although it can be helpful.
Yeah, college is part of it. There's college is a part, and our society has just modernized. And when you modernize, everybody starts to move into these neighborhoods and suburban America. And now you're not on a farm every day. Now you're not fixing the car every day. You're not developing real skills. You're not learning how to work growing up. I didn't learn how to work growing up. Mm-hmm. I learned how to work when I was a teenager in Montana. By the grace of God, I got lucky and someone taught me before I was too old and screwed for the rest of my life. But yeah, it's not looking good because there's about 40% of the industry aging out in this decade. Yeah. And there's already 500,000 plus open positions right now in the construction industry to keep up with demand. So you just, everybody's looking at the information like, oh boy, that's a pickle, but then no one knows what to really do about it at the same time.
Yeah, maybe robots will ride in and save us, or at least make up the gap, but probably not.
I've seen the robots in question, and they're cool, but they are certainly not going to make a 500,000 person gap disappear in the construction industry anytime soon. So we'll see. That's our opportunity. But we're here to talk to you today about EOS.
Yeah.
Can you explain in layman terms what a EOS is?
What an EOS is. All right. So
Yes.
EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And what it is a complete set of real world simple tools that helps an organization do three things that we call vision, traction, and healthy. So vision from the standpoint of getting the leadership team of the organization, the founder, entrepreneur, and the leadership team, usually the 3 to 8 people at the helm of the business, 100% on the same page with their vision, where they're going, and how they're going to get there. And then tractions from the standpoint of really creating the disciplines, the habits, the accountability necessary to execute on every aspect of that vision. And then finally, healthy is creating really healthy, cohesive, and functional teams. So what the system is doing is getting you to the point where everyone in your business, if you got 50 people, 100 people, 3 people, seeing the same thing, they're wanting the same thing, they're masters of execution, and they're moving forward as really healthy, cohesive, fun-loving team, if that's your culture. And so that's what EOS does.
So it's a framework for businesses to operate more effectively.
It is, and we simplify that to say it's a system for managing human energy.
Okay.
It's getting everybody rowing in the same direction, executing towards a particular goal.
How did you get involved in EOS to begin with?
So it's really interesting story. I was an entrepreneur myself, and I had co-founded a pharma biotech services company with my brother. And we did a couple series of mergers. We had 9 or so companies at the time. And we went to an event that was at the Pentagon and in Obama's small business administration in the White House. And so we went to this event, and the host was an EOS implementer. His name's Jonathan Smith. And he introduced us to EOS. And I just was looking for, at that very specific time, with 9 companies growing really fast, we were just succeeding in spite of ourselves. And so I wanted a system to cohesively orchestrate all of our people, all of our systems and processes, and accomplish our goal, because it was really chaotic. We were hitting the ceiling. Everything felt really complex and hard. And so we were introduced to EOS at the Pentagon, having lunch with a 3-star general.
Sure.
A very strange place to run into EOS. Fell in love with everything that I learned from him, and I started implementing those tools into my own company, first by myself. Kind of figured out was Dr. Heal Thyself a little bit. Hired Jonathan to come be our EOS implementer, our facilitator. And I used the tools to exit the day-to-day of my companies. Eventually became an EOS implementer myself. Sold my companies in 2018. Was a EOS implementer, spent over 12,000 hours in a session room with clients, just having a lot of fun working with them as a coach in the implementer community, then head coach, and then eventually landed myself somehow as visionary and CEO at EOS Worldwide.
Yeah, it's that's pretty amazing, and I think it's almost essential that you came from operating a business and having to implement this yourself, because you can understand the entire process better than just about anybody else.
I definitely have a unique perspective, having self-implemented, having used an EOS implementer, having been an implementer, been a coach of implementers, the head coach of all the implementers, now running the company. Certainly gives me a unique perspective of what people go through running an entrepreneurial business, using EOS tools to get the results they want.
Now, you keep saying implementer. What is an implementer?
Yeah. So an EOS implementer is, we'll call them a business coach. And so they've been trained to help companies implement the tools of EOS. And so there's 720 of them in the world. We work with clients in 40 different countries, and they are a helper, an entrepreneurial helper. They come and work with those leadership teams and help them get the results that they want using the tools of EOS.
You said when you were looking or before this Pentagon event, everything was a little chaotic.
Oh, yeah.
And I think a lot of, like I said, the audience that we really talk to, they're oftentimes business owners in construction. And again, the cool thing about construction is anybody can go start a business, but that means there's a ton of business owners in this industry, and sometimes it really takes off and there is just complete chaos as things scale. There's a lot of chaos I've seen in this world because there are so many businesses growing, so many new businesses. There's just a lot going on. I think that's a very relatable place for a lot of people, especially me. I've just been living in a world of chaos for the past few years. I mean, since I started the company, really, it's just been nonstop chaos.
Yeah.
And finding something to at least quell some of that is so necessary.
We think it is. I really, the impact that we have on the lives of entrepreneurs is quite astounding. In some sense, entrepreneurs love the chaos, right? If you find yourself always putting out fires, sometimes you do have to ask yourself who the arsonist is.
Sure.
And usually it isn't the entrepreneur. It's usually, hey, because you get so used to the activity, you get so used to all the things going on that when it's quiet for a minute, it kind of freaks you out a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think Gino Wickman, who's our founder, he created EOS. He used to refer to EOS as entrepreneurial Prozac, for visionary Prozac. I mean, it's basically what it is, right? It puts your mind at ease. One, it lets you know that you're totally and utterly normal, that as an entrepreneur, you go through these periods where everything is working, it's all clicking, and then you feel like you just ran full speed into a wall. We call that hitting the ceiling, and that's where one of three things happens at that point in time, right? You stagnate and you fail to grow. Over 50% fail and they die at that point in time. Mm-hmm. And the select few break through that ceiling and they scale their organization, they get to the next level, and it happens again. It happens again and again and again, over and over. And so what we really, really work on, and what the system is designed to do, is to train resilience, train mindsets and frameworks so that you can break through that ceiling each and every time, accepting the fact that that sense of chaos is inevitable. It happens over and over and over again, and it's not avoidable.
Which I've learned is just part of business. It's part of anything. It's part of growing yourself as a human being. It's part of a career. It's part of probably having a family. I don't have a family, but I've heard it's chaotic at times. I've heard there's ups and downs to it. And it's so tempting to want this one formula that, bring it back to business, that I can just plug into the business and everything makes sense indefinitely, no matter what level I'm at, which is completely false. Because, you have 20 people and then you go to 50 people. That's a different business. It's not even remotely similar to 20 people. And if you take the same operating system you were running at 20 and apply it to 50, it's just, you're going to fail. But what you're saying is we focus a lot on those skills that you need to continuously reinvent things, because it's just going to happen repeatedly, no matter where you're at, no matter what your business is.
It is, and the system, and it doesn't. You can use any system. It doesn't have to be EOS. We just happen to probably be first and probably have the largest one. But it's based on first principles. So Elon Musk sort of made popular first principles, is that we break, because just exactly to your point, that 20-person company, 10-person company, it's a whole new world at 50. It's a whole new world at 100, 300. And if you can boil all of it down to just really first principles, what are the core things that work no matter at what size organization you are? And we train around those skills, around those mindsets, understanding that hitting the ceiling is inevitable, how to solve issues at the root, get people rowing in the same direction, using data, solving issues at the root. That's a discipline in of itself. Having your process, your franchise prototype in its simplest form, and how to create accountability, discipline, and really execute on every aspect of that vision with consistency. That's first principles, simple thinking. It scales forever. And so we eliminate intentionally a bunch of complexity that you could have that would work great for a 50-person company, but it won't work for 300 or 3,000.
Sure.
And so we strip all that away and make it as simple as we can.
When you're learning how to implement,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the things that you need to learn before you can go do that with companies?
As an implementer or just as an entrepreneur implementing the system?
As
yourself?
an implementer, and then I'll take it from a company perspective.
Yeah. So I think 85% of our EOS implementers in our community are exited entrepreneurs. They've built and sold a company using the tools of EOS in some way. And so almost everyone comes from a little bit of a been there, done that place, right? So they really come into our world already knowing what it is, how to run a company generally, how to use tools and systems in order to get results you want. And so then we train them on really bringing that down, breaking it down to those first principles, the really core, simple tools that we have in the system. And they use those tools working with clients. And it's a little bit like doctors learn, see one, do one, teach one. So they've seen it done. They've implemented in their own business most often, and now they're teaching it to someone else. And it's just a repetitive path to mastery that we are teaching our EOS implementers internally. And they go and then teach their clients, and they get better and better over time.
And how many times have you done this process yourself?
I worked with a little over 100 clients myself. Spent about 12,000 hours in a session room or teaching the tools in some capacity. And there's a fallacy there, though. Like people say, the 10,000 hour rule. Well,
Sure.
That's not a rule. That just sounded really good when Malcolm Gladwell wrote the book.
Yeah.
That's really when the journey really begins. And so I'm learning every single day and how to use these tools in our company, EOS Worldwide, and how to teach these tools to other people.
Yeah, if I played 10,000 hours of basketball, I'd probably still suck because I'm 5'6". But what are some of the themes that you saw along the way with working with those 100 companies? What are some of the things you picked up on?
Well, I think number one is everything changes. Nothing is static, right? What was going to work for you one quarter is not going to work for you the next because you're dealing with humans.
Mm-hmm.
And so people are dynamic and changing at all times. So most of the organizations that we work with, their number one issue by far and away is people. Mm-hmm. Either finding the right ones, they're just not available, retaining the right ones, rewarding and recognizing them, getting all the right people in the right seats, as we say, is just a very difficult thing to do. So really, that's the number one issue that we would see on a regular basis. I mean, 80% or more of all the issues inside of a company is because someone in the business doesn't want, or have the capacity to do their job really, really well and share your core values. So that's number one. Number two would be an issue of process, right? People generally avoid processes as much as they can. They don't want to document it. And so that prevents scale in a lot of ways. And so that would be number two. The third issue that we see most often is an issue of data. And it's a little bit of a avoidance of accountability from a people perspective. It's also a lack of documentation and process that makes measurement hard. But people sort of guess a lot as opposed to making decisions based on data. So those are the top three issues that we see just sort of over and over and over again.
Yeah, I've probably struggled most with the second one because I'm an entrepreneur. And that's one of the core traits of entrepreneurs is not a large respect for convention, for rules, mm-hmm. for doing things a certain way. That works to a degree. But then, beginning of last year, we went above 50 people for the first time. And now we're 70, 75, somewhere in there. We're just to the point, and our business is a lot more complex than it was 2 years ago because there's multiple areas of the business now. We're to the point where I forget who broke it down in this way, but you go from pirate ship to Navy. And we've been in that world for the past year and a half, where before it was very much a pirate ship. You're just raiding whatever island comes into view and hopefully finding some valuable booty. But there's no real direction to it and no process to it. And at a certain point, that just causes chaos. And you always need a little bit of that because you see these big soulless corporations that just make me just shudder. Like if I had to spend my career at some of these companies I see, it just sounds like just terrible. No creativity. I'd have to wear a suit every day. It just would not be a good time.
Yeah.
So you need that entrepreneurial spirit, but you also need that process to keep everything grounded. And it's been a learning experience for me to figure out where that balance is and when to push, and then when to say, you know what, me getting involved right now is just going to make this even worse, or we need this process. And frankly, speaking very openly, we've implemented EOS over the past year or so. I was not a big fan of it to start because I thought it was a little bit of an oxymoron. It's like, how can you have an entrepreneurial operating system? Because entrepreneurship is about doing things differently and being innovative. But as we've done it, and as I've seen the organization it's provided us and the clarity it's provided, and we're not all the way there yet. There's still a long ways to go, but it's been extremely beneficial.
Which is great to hear. And it's interesting with process because visionary entrepreneurs don't like process, and yet they use them all the time. And so here's what we see, that entrepreneurs like to execute a process, and the moment it has worked, it's proven to work, they abandon it. Why? Because it's boring now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The process works, it produces a consistent result. And now this is boring as anything, and I need to go do something different. And so either I'm going to screw up that process so it doesn't work anymore, go find a new one, and so you just have this sort of mix of what I would refer to as exploration versus exploitation. And a lot of that comes down to having a great visionary and integrator relationship in the organization, where the visionary is the big idea person. They're usually creating the chaos, the wake behind them. The integrator is the person who's keeping the trains running on time. They're keeping everything running very smoothly, integrating the major function of the organization, where the visionary is probably going to prove that process out. Yep, it works. They need to hand it off to a integrator who's going to exploit that process then and maximize every component of it consistently and forever with incremental improvements, tweak, hone, refine, make it better and better over time. But we see this all the time with founding entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs and founding entrepreneurs specifically are not CEOs. Mm-hmm. While that might be the corporate title because that's what the bank wants, the integrator is so important to that visionary entrepreneur because we are not CEOs in the traditional sense.
Yeah. And I mean, a CEO, the job is Chief Executive Officer. So in theory, the other executives that are operating the business report to you, and you're really operating and guiding that business day to day. Right. And I've seriously, my technical title is Chief Executive Officer, and I think titles are stupid. That's just one of the things, I have these traits. Some of them. And one of them is just, I think titles are really dumb because once I found out titles are completely made up, then I saw how the sausage was made. I was like, wait a minute. I've been lied to my whole life. But I've questioned, I'm probably not the CEO for this business long term. And that's okay. But with construction companies specifically, I don't want to say most. I paint with a broad brush a lot. A lot of companies are run by the visionary, and they remain always run by the visionary. And I think the most successful construction companies I've seen have the visionary integrator relationship. I've seen this quite a few times over, very successfully. And it is the difference between the two is profound. It is really profound. But just so often you see a guy that got really good at digging holes and then needed to hire somebody to help him dig holes. And then he was really good. So people started to ask him to dig some more holes. And then he needed to hire more people. And now it's a 300-person organization that still entirely flows through one individual. And you can just watch the constant chaos unfold. And I'm 28. I get to see a lot of construction companies very intimately right now. So I do have this unique experience, but I also approach it like, what do I know? I just watch and I just spectate from the outside. But I see it so often. And the chaos, I believe, is unavoidable. And more importantly, we're talking about going into the next generation. I think this is where succession planning is non-existent, because if it's just one visionary running the entire show and that visionary goes away and there's no integrator, there's no operations, the company's worthless. The company, there's no value to the company other than the balance sheet at that point.
Yeah. Jim Collins has a concept that he talks about, which is there's two different types of leaders. There are time tellers, and then there's clock builders. So I've been very fortunate because Gino Wickman, who is the original founder, CEO, he doesn't consider himself that per se, or didn't. He was a clock builder. And so he started, and the difference between a time teller and a clock builder is, they're the singular leader. They're the only one. They're the genius with 1,000 helpers. And so they're just really telling everyone what to do. They're telling everyone where we're going. And there's no system. There's no process behind that. Where a clock builder brings up that second, third generation, builds a team of people, has systems and processes where you're enabling all of your people to move the business forward without your presence. And so that's what a clock builder does. And the reason I say that is, Gino's a clock builder. Mike Payton, who was my predecessor, he took over as the visionary. Gino's first integrator was someone named Don Tinney. Don Tinney then passed the torch to Kelly Knight. Mike Payton passed the torch to me for the visionary seat here at EOS. Kelly is still my integrator, thankfully. And we are clock builders. We are designing a system using our own tools so that we can plan, we can hand the baton off to the next generation of leaders. And that's the way you grow and scale a company of a lot of value, because if I disappeared tomorrow, it really wouldn't do much to the organization. Does everyone have their unique genius and capabilities that add value? Absolutely.
Sure. Especially in construction, it's beyond that too. It's not just creating a valuable organization, but it's creating a valuable organization that's going to create value for multiple generations to come. I get it. I'm the guy on the outside. It's super easy to criticize from the stands. But I'm looking in and I'm like, what is your legacy? Because if you go away, what happens to your business? And so you've spent 40 years getting this business to a point that is questionable going forward. And then what happens? Like we need your business. This business builds infrastructure. It builds water lines. It builds roads, bridges. It gets internet to people's houses, power, gas. This is the foundation of society that we're playing with right now. And so this is way bigger than your livelihood at this point. And most of these people have made substantial money at this point, but it's like, you got to think, what is your legacy? What are you leaving behind? And are you leaving something sustainable behind that's going to be good when you're gone? Because just because you're gone doesn't mean society doesn't need infrastructure anymore. And I've tried to frame it in a way that resonates with people. And so I've said, hey, maybe you're good, but what about your children? And okay, your children want nothing to do with construction. That's fine. But no matter where your children go, the doctor, lawyer, teacher, they depend on infrastructure every single day of the week to survive. And that needs to be sound for them to be successful. And so this is like what we're talking about is the utmost importance. I think a lot of people, when it comes to this workforce challenge the construction industry is facing, they like we talked about, they quickly point to college and some of these other things. But the way we're looking at it is, well, that's part of it. But I'm more so looking at what's the leadership within the current industry look like? What do the businesses in the current industry look like? Like, I think that's where the real change is going to come from. I think that's where this industry is going to, that's what's going to guide this industry into the future is strong, successful businesses that are set up for multiple generations, which is why this is so exciting because EOS is something to make that a reality. So this is a direct solution to, I think, the workforce challenge.
I think it is to a certain degree for sure. And people, entrepreneurs have different views on legacy. Some people say, well, I'm going to be dead, so who cares? I'm gone, doesn't matter. But the reality is almost every business owner believes that they will exit their company at some time. And so whether it's handing it down to another generation, whether it is selling it, or whether it is disbanding it or merging it with someone else, building a company that can run on its own, basically, with enough of the right people. Yes, that would create a legacy, but it also creates enterprise value so that you can transfer it to another owner. And so if you're the person who's worked 40 years and your children are not going to take over the business, you want to maximize that exit value. When you sell your company to the next owner, you want as much cash as you can possibly get. I mean, I don't think anybody would say, well, give me less. Everyone wants more. And so building a company that, yes, would leave a legacy, but if that's not your interest, the exit value, the transferability of your organization through having a system increases enterprise value because someone can take ownership of that and grow it to wherever they want to grow it without your participation because it's not dependent upon you. Mm-hmm. So I think no matter where you are and the way you think about legacy, you think it's important. I happen to think it's important as well. A lot don't. It still does a right thing. Sure. Totally random with the workforce issues. Some of it, oddly, has to do with birth rate, right? I mean, there's just the birth rate in the country. There's just not enough humans to facilitate the amount of demand that we have. So, there's a solution to that. It was like 25 years ago.
Yeah, and I have not helped with the birth rate thing because I don't have kids yet. I haven't done my part, and I think it's like it's almost 2 births per woman technically to feed a population to going forward, and we're below that right now.
We are, yeah.
But yeah, I've been tempted to make the workforce thing into it's just this, but it's like what I've recognized is there's about 138 different factors all mixing together in this weird way to create all these different conditions in different labor markets that are materializing in different ways. It's all, there are some common themes, but there's a lot. It's just a very complex problem at the same time.
And you can't control all of it. So it's really about controlling the controllables, running a highly productive business that's engaging to people. They want to be a part of what it is that you're building. You're executing well. You're creating lots of value for your customers at a fair price, with as little waste as possible. All of those things, if you drive in that efficiency, execute well, you're going to have engaged people. You're going to tip the scales in your favor a lot because of the just simple fact that there's not enough humans to go around. for the work that needs to get done. Well, if you're an organization, if you're a construction company now looking for people, the best thing you can do is tip the scale in your favor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do we tip the scale in our favor? Well, what are people driven by? Daniel Pink talks about mastery, autonomy, and purpose as the biggest drivers. And he wrote that book a little bit ago. And so I still think, though, that no matter what generation you're a part of, those three things are still. So what are you doing in your business to create a world where someone can have a sense of mastery? Well, construction is a perfect place for that, right? I mean, you get lots of reps. You got lots of opportunities to get better over time. What are you doing to master your craft, to get better and better every time you go out there and do your job? Well, so we can say, let's do that. Autonomy, well, we want to make sure that we are not micromanaging, smothering people. If you're that genius with 1,000 helpers, you don't want to be telling everyone what to do. You want to give them that freedom, that autonomy to gain mastery and to learn and grow. And then purpose, well, the clock punching person, that kind of thinking, sort of industrial age style, survival style, show up at 8 and punch the clock at 4. That's not really interesting to future generations. So what's the purpose? What's the dent in the universe that you're looking to make? Then you just enroll as many people as you can into that culture based on your core values, and you can tip the scale in your favor. And that's in some ways, that's the best you're going to be able to do.
Well, this is why I'm so optimistic about construction, because construction is very, in theory, when it's done correctly, autonomous. You're on different job sites, spread out all across there. Everybody at a construction company doesn't work at the office. They're all spread out, scattered across all different job sites, having to make their own decisions every day to build a project. Mastery, you have these real skills that you're practicing and honing every day that in a lot of industries and careers has gone away in a sense. And then you have this beautiful sense of purpose that is quite literally building your community, building society. And so we have those things as an industry. We just need to get the word out about those things and focus on those things. Because right now it's more so focused on, well, let's just pay people more. But I'm for raising wages. I think that's great. But if it's just money, we're always going to get beat out by other companies out there. Like what you can go get a job at starting at Amazon in an air-conditioned warehouse, it's typically higher than your average starting construction job within whatever market you're in. And I'm driving to my construction job, passing the big billboard that says, we'll start you at this, which might be $1 more an hour than I'm earning outside right now. And that's conditioned. I know where I'm going to be at work every day, but that doesn't have that sense of purpose. That doesn't have this sense of mastery. That doesn't have necessarily the autonomy that I think this world can offer. So I'm a construction company and there's a bunch of chaos right now. And I've said, you know what? This sounds pretty good. Where does a company start in this process? Can we walk through the process and what it looks like?
Yeah, sure. So there's really two main paths to implementing a system like EOS into your company. So I'll walk you through those two paths. The number one is you can just self-implement. And so you can go to your local Barnes & Noble or go on Amazon and buy the book Traction by Gino Wickman. And so it is a step-by-step instruction manual on how to implement these tools into your business. The second way is you can read the book for sure. Go to our website and you can hire an EOS implementer, and they're going to take you through a process that starts with what we call a 90-minute meeting. And so what that is you sit with your leadership team, hopefully in a conference room somewhere or at the implementer's session room, and they take you through 90 minutes of what the entire system and process looks like. So they guide you through that entire day, and then you decide, hey, is this a good fit for me or not? If it is, you go to what's called a focus day. And a focus day, it's 7 hours plus or minus 1, and it's you and your leadership team locked in a room, not really locked, but kind of locked.
Sure.
And you're going to create, we have a philosophy of traction first, vision second. Because what happens is instinctually you would say, I'm going to go create the vision for my organization, and I'm going to go, spend a weekend and write all this down and give it to my leadership team and say, hey, we're going here now. That doesn't work because you lack the discipline, or one most often lacks the discipline and accountability to execute on the vision. It's never that people lack vision typically. It's that they don't have the accountability, the discipline to execute on it. So we start with the traction part, which is the discipline, the habit part. And so we create an accountability chart, which think about this an org structure with roles, responsibility, who's doing what. We set rocks, which are the 90-day priorities for the leadership team only. Then we have a meeting pulse. We install a meeting pulse into the business, a weekly meeting. And you can customize it to fit your unique business, but it's really about execution and being on the same page and team health and driving the business forward. So you go with meetings, and then you go into a scorecard. So what are the 5 to 15 numbers that are going to give you a total pulse on the business? And that's a little bit like the entrepreneurial Prozac, which is if you have a great scorecard and you look at those numbers, the sense of panic, the 2 a.m. thoughts begin to go away, right? They give you that sense of calm and control. So we do that in one day, 7 hours plus or minus one. What we've realized working with entrepreneurs, our target market's 10 to 250 employees. That's kind of the sweet spot. That we want to give you as much as we possibly can and create the most impact we possibly can in the least amount of time. So you just do one day, 7 hours, you go away, you practice with the tools, you use the tools, and you come back together. And whether you use an implementer, you do this yourself, it's the same process. You do vision building day one. You review the stuff you did and learned in the first day, tweak, hone, refine from there. Then you start going into the work of defining your core values. What defines your culture? What makes you different? Who do you want to attract to your business, and who do you want to repel from it?
Mm-hmm.
So you go through that process. You set your core focus, which is a mixture of your purpose, your cause, your passion, and your niche. What do you do better than anyone else in the world? It could be dig holes, whatever it might be, to use your previous example.
Yeah.
What's your 10-year target? You go away for another 30 days, practice all the tools, get on the same page, you come back, review everything you did, and then you finish out with what is your marketing strategy? What is your 3-year picture, your 1-year plan? By that time, you reset your first round of practice rocks. And then what's your issues list? And so that's the process. And then once per quarter, you come together as a leadership team, you check in with where you've been, where you are, where you're going, and you just get on the same page as a team. You reset your plans, and then you go back to work for another 90 days. And you meet once a week with your team. Some teams will do dailies, I would imagine, and I had quite a few construction companies as clients, is that daily stand-up can make sense, or twice a week, or sometimes every other week, depending. But, ideally it's once a week, and you're solving your issues. You're removing all those obstacles and barriers. You're making sure your priorities are on track, making sure your numbers are on track, and all your people are happy. You just do that once a week in between, really simple. And in a lot of ways, for a lot of companies, you break through the ceiling, you experience a lot of growth. Top line, bottom line, people define growth in different ways. I had one client who was working 80 hours a week, implemented, came back, working 20 hours a week, spending more time with family, contributing to his community in, feeding homeless people and so forth and so on. And so that was growth for him. His company did happen to quadruple in size over the next 2 years, but that wasn't what his aim was. His aim was his time growth. And so that's really the high level approach that we take. It's time-spaced learning. I'm going to quote the Greek philosopher incorrectly. I think his name was Antichius or something. And he said, under pressure, we don't rise to the occasion. We sink to our lowest level of training and preparation. And so we're taking the approach, this time-spaced learning approach, so that when you are under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion. You sink to the lowest level of your training preparation. So we're building that layer of preparation that just gets you better and better, very resilient over time, and you can execute under any condition.
And I think the resiliency you've talked about a few times is so key to an organization, because you just don't know what's next. You can't control outcomes, and you can't control outside conditions. So you have to learn how to react in an intelligent way. And especially with construction. I mean, construction, again, it's a great example of the necessity of resiliency, just because, for example, like, you work outside. In our industry, most people work outside. You have weather when you're outside. You can't control the weather. And so you can have this perfect schedule. You can have these perfect drawings. You can have everything perfectly planned out. But you go get, and weather is weather for a reason. Sometimes it's completely unpredictable. You get these weather events and everything is completely knocked off course, and you can't sit there and cry about it. You can't go back to the owner and say, sorry, a hurricane came through. What are we going to do? That doesn't work. You have to figure it out. And so to have the resiliency as an organization that's just so key. So key. Yeah, I mean, even something recently happened where I got to see the resiliency, at least of our executive team, at play. Like, something unexpected, somebody unexpectedly left. And, I think even like 6 months ago, that would have caused some panic or a little bit of anxiety, but we were so quickly just like, okay, what do we got to do? What do we got to figure out? What's important? What's in front of us? What are the next steps? How does this look, a little bit down the road? It was just so quickly to, all right, check, the game just changed. Here's what we need to do to change with it. And it was cool. It wasn't cool because it was an unexpected change, but it was cool to see it all play out in that way, given what we had, what chips we had on the table.
Yeah. And when you have that level of resilience, now, I think people need to, companies should consistently train resilience throughout their entire organization. We want the tools that we talked about, we want them rolled out to the entire business, because everyone beyond the leadership team, that mid-manager layer, is so key to building those skills in order for you to build a really fast-growing, scaling business. It's a never-ending process to train resilience. And what does that look like? Doesn't mean that bad things don't happen. Nope. It just means exactly as you said, it's how you respond to those. You just take responsibility for the controllable. And it's not that it's emotion-free, but you have a sense of it's okay. It's all going to be fine. We're going to still be here. We're going to continue executing. We're just going to keep putting one foot in one or the other, and we're going to keep executing every 90 days. We'll move the business forward, and it's quite freeing.
I think another freeing thing is the scorecard, because at least for me, it's really nice. I travel a lot, and I'm just bouncing around all over. But every week I can come back to that scorecard and somewhat understand, okay, here's where our business is at, and here's where we're on track. Cool, check. Here's where we're off track, and this is what needs attention. And you're able to react and manage and lead a lot more effectively, knowing the information. But it's important for me. It's way more important for everybody else to know exactly where everything's at. And I'm trying to take this back to construction as much as I can. But with construction, I so often see the people building the work, or the foreman, the people leading the work in the field, don't understand what the score is. They're just told they have to go build. And you got to hurry up. Why do we have to hurry up? What's the schedule look like? They don't know. They don't know what the budget's like. They don't know if they're making money, if they're losing money. They don't know if they're doing a good job. They don't know if they don't know. And so maybe it's just the project manager, or maybe it's even just ownership of the company knowing how projects are doing financially, but otherwise no one knows. And if they don't know, if I don't understand the urgency, I can't help. I can't improve my performance because my performance isn't measured. So I don't have really any baseline. And then I can't, if we really need to improve things, I can't help because I don't know that there's a problem. And I think our construction is very measurable in a lot of ways, which is exciting because we already have the information. We just need to get it into the right hands, because once they have that scoreboard, like in an NBA, in a basketball game, just imagine what a basketball game would even look like without a scoreboard, without just the two coaches knowing what the score was. No one else knew what the score. It'd just be a mess. Like
no one would play.
Yeah. There'd be no point to it. And so just the winner is announced at the very end of the game. Like, why would I even do this? And there's a lot of businesses that operate like that.
There totally is. And we talk about everyone having a number. And on the first pass, it kind of can be a little bit of a turnoff. Like, oh, you don't trust me. You're going to measure everything that I'm doing. But you can have a culture of really high trust and everyone having a number, because generally speaking, people want to win. They want to know what the score is. Again, it kind of comes back to those three things of mastery, autonomy, and purpose. How do you know you're mastering your craft if there's no measurement of that? How do you know that you're moving the purpose of the business forward, that you believe in, that you want to help move forward? How do you know if you're not keeping score? So everything fits together. A lot of that is also, it's a little bit of a lack of skill on leaders and managers throughout any industry, construction included, that I don't think that leaders and managers are born. I think that it is a skill that can be developed over time. Now, are some people more naturally inclined? They're extroverted, they're great communicators, and so people think that they're a born leader. And so there's some elements of that for sure. But the one thing, in order to be a great leader, a great manager, one thing has to be true, and that's you genuinely care about your people. So I would say that if you aren't giving your people the opportunity to know the score, if you are not giving an opportunity for your people to win, do you really care about them? Or are they an exchangeable, replaceable part in your machine to make you money? Or to hopefully one day make money.
Sure.
And if they're just a replaceable part, they're a cog in your machine and you don't really care about them, you're never going to be a great leader. You're never going to be a great manager, and your business is never going to be great either. It just won't. You have to care about your people. You got to give them the tools they need to succeed. Having a scorecard would be one of them for sure.
This is where there's a bad trend here. Construction business owners, I don't think they'll ever admit, I don't care about my people. But a lot of them will admit that I don't trust these people because they're just going to leave. And I've heard that admitted quite a few times over in different ways. But that's the irony of giving people that information at the same time is if you trust them first, if you give them that information, now that's saying, I trust you. And humans, we do want to be trusted. We are tribal creatures. We do want to fit in with wherever we are. We want to be desperately want to be part of the tribe. And so if you go first and you give them that information, now they're starting to become part of the organization, part of the tribe. And now that says to them that you are not just a number, because we want to invest in you and we want to give you the score. We want to give you the information. And the crazy thing is, any construction company that does that right now is automatically different than most other construction companies out there. That like something that simple is a big differentiating factor between a lot of other construction companies out there. And so if you're trying to edge out your competition, sure pay, sure benefits, but everybody kind of pays the same now. Everybody has benefits, like good for you. You give your people healthcare, like so does everybody else. So does everybody, like everybody has retirement. That in my 20s, I don't get excited about healthcare and retirement. But what I do get excited about is, oh, okay, this company is different because they're inviting me in. They're giving me this information. They're allowing me to understand how this business operates so that I can adjust my performance and actions accordingly, which is super, super attractive.
Yeah. At EOS, some of our tools, we have a lot of philosophies. I mean, in general, we are a philosophy of how to run a business, but it's also a little bit of a human philosophy. And what I mean by that is we have a tool called the Delegate and Elevate tool. And this is in reference to being afraid that your people will leave if you train them, if you give them too much, whatever it is, that they're just gonna leave you anyway, right? Well, that's scarcity thinking. It's operating from a place of scarcity and fear versus abundance and love, which people hear me say constantly. And well, what does that mean? So the Delegate and Elevate tool, it's simple, 4 quadrants. Top left quadrant is things that you love to do and you're great at. Top right quadrant is things that you like to do and you're good at them. Bottom left quadrant is things that you don't like to do, but you are good at them. You've gained a certain level of skill over time. And then the bottom right is things that you do not like to do, and you're not particularly good at them either.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe someone just delegated to you, and so you gave it your best, but you hated it and you were terrible at it.
Sure.
So the reason I talk about that tool is the underlying philosophy there is that every human is completely unique. You, Aaron, are the only one that has existed like you in the history of the universe, and you're the only one like you that will ever exist into the future, well beyond our disappearance. So you're it. You're that unique person.
My mom says the same thing.
Well,
yeah.
We all are that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the case. And the reason that's important in terms of hiring and managing and leading people is that you have all these unique gifts within your organization. And who are you to hold them hostage in your business because you need them to do something you want them to do? Mm-hmm. Who are you? What gives you the right to do any of that? Well, you don't. You don't have it. And so to not help them learn and grow, to not help them navigate where they are in their career and in their life, to find those things that they love to do and they're great at, part of their unique ability, like Dan Sullivan refers to it as. We believe at EOS that part of the leader and manager's job is to bring out all that uniqueness. And if they share your core values and they GWC, they get, want, and have the capacity to do the job you have for them, and it's part of who they are and they love it and they love you and it's mutual, let's go. Like that's and it might only be for a point in time and they kind of start to get a little bored and they want to move on.
Yeah.
But whether it's the way our philosophy is, whether it's with your company, with another company, to us, you kind of owe it to them and honoring their uniqueness to help them find the spot that's best for them. Mm-hmm. And so you're not thinking about them working for you. You could place them with a competitor. And if it lights them up and that's like where they should be, to me, that's doing the right thing. And so not to get all philosophical on you there, but it is an underlying thought process that says there's more than enough to go around. Every human is absolutely unique, and I'm going to honor that in the way I manage and lead my people. Versus there's not enough to go around. I have to own it all. I'm scared that they're going to leave me, that I don't trust them, they're going to take something from me. And so you try to protect it all. Mm-hmm. But you don't do yourself any good and you don't do them any good either.
And I've had to, I guess, live this in a few ways. I guess the one that comes to mind first is I have to be careful when I say I've had to be deliberate about how I phrase things, like saying, "Hey, you're so important in this role, and if you were ever to leave, I would be completely screwed." Like, yep. I don't want to pigeon and like, to me, it's like, well, I'm praising them for doing a great job, but then at the other side of the coin is, well, I don't want to pigeonhole them in this role and make them feel like they can never leave and maybe it's working out for them now, but maybe 2 years from now they want to do something else. Like, I don't want to force them into that just because it serves me. It's interesting. It's interesting. And I guess the second thing that I've had to really understand is that not everybody thinks like me, which is crazy. And not everybody. Yeah, it's crazy. Wild. Not everybody wants what I want. Not everybody's good at what I'm good at. Not everybody's bad at what I'm bad at. Like everybody truly is completely different. And not only is everybody completely different, but they're different at different parts of their life too. Like you people want something different in their 20s versus their 40s sometimes, because maybe you have a family and you settle down and life's completely different. And you were willing to go travel the whole country to do whatever you needed to do back in the day. And now you've got 3 kids and a family at home and you don't want to travel, and that's okay. But yeah, I've really had to understand that. And it sounds completely ridiculous, but I just assume, like, even mastery in the construction industry, I think a lot of people fall into the trap of thinking that everybody wants to be president of the company. Yeah. And that's just not true. I think a lot of people want to be masters at their craft. And which is a completely different want, a completely different like desire, but requires the same effort nonetheless. But yes, not everybody wants to be president of the company, but that's okay, because you can only have one president of the company too. Like, not everybody in society can be president of the company, because then nothing happens. There's no values created. Nothing works. So yeah, I think that's all fascinating.
Yeah.
I think one of the coolest things about EOS is how many times you all have had to work this through other companies. How many companies has EOS worked with?
So we worked with 23,000 working with an implementer. So 23,000 companies raised their hand, said, I want a EOS implementer to come and help me implement these tools. Now, there's more than 10 to 1. We're kind of getting our data a little bit better and seems to be edging up towards more than 10 to 1, but I'm just going to go with 10 to 1 for now, have used the tools in their company on their own. So they're self-implementing. So 10 to 1 self-implementers to those using an EOS implementer, facilitator, and coach. We sold over 2.4 million books. And so they're really, it's the instruction manual. So there's really no way of measuring that in its entirety for now. We just know it's at least 10 to 1. And so, you can do the math. It's at least 230,000 companies who are using these tools every day in their business.
That's no joke. I mean, that is serious impact.
It is serious impact. I mean, it is a privilege and honor. I have to sort of, it's a little bit of a pinch yourself moment. Like, wow, we have the amount of impact for the good, or at least we hope it is a privilege. And the best stories for us, like I said, the one person who was working 80 hours got himself down to 20. What I didn't say, he went and adopted a few children from China, from Haiti. He spent time in soup kitchens, and his business went from $1 million to $15 million. Mm. And we have hundreds, thousands of those stories where, yes, we're making a business impact. We're making a impact in the world. Hopefully these entrepreneurs, they want to do good in the world. And so they do. And they're freed up to do that. The employees in the organization have more opportunity. They're living in their top left quadrant, the love great, on their own path to whatever that is that they want to achieve. And so they're surrounding themselves with people who share their core values. They share their culture. They believe what they believe. And so to me, 50% or more of people right now are experiencing some signs of burnout out in the world. What does that mean? Well, they're missing a sense of community. They're missing a sense of purpose, of mastery, autonomy, and purpose. And so I hope that we are at least a little bit of a bright spot that's in contrast to what's happening in our world in other places.
Well, I think there's now more than ever, there's a lot of nonsense in like people. Oh, I can teach you how to do business. Like, well, what business have you done? Well, I've done no business, but I'm really good at teaching business. Like, get out of here, beat it. But you all, like you said, most of your implementers have built businesses themselves, and I mean, helping nearly 250,000 businesses is pretty remarkable. And then those businesses, like you said, employ people. And so that's an impact of millions and millions and millions and millions of people that you've been able to work this system through. And at least, my thinking was originally is I'm a unique flower. I'm special, like you said. And, it doesn't apply to us, but if it's applied to nearly 250,000 different businesses in all sorts of categories, odds are it probably can help whatever business you have out.
There's no doubt about it. And that's kind of going back to what I said earlier about first principles, is that we joke that EOS will work in your business as long as one thing is true. And I was like, oh, what's that? Like, you have people in your business. If you have people in your business, we can help you. If you don't, well, we probably can't.
Sure.
But as long as that one thing is true, no matter what industry you're in, what size your business is, if you have people, if you employ people, because it's a system for managing human energy, we can help. A system can help. This is not about, I'm not selling anyone on anything, because you can go and get great results going to your library, checking out Traction for free, and implement these tools and concepts in your business for free.
Yeah.
There, you can go on our website, you can download videos, you can go on YouTube. There's 100 ways that you can use these tools for free in your business. And it's impactful. It works. It does take work. I mean, it is not easy. It's simple, not easy. That would be the case. You got to want it. You got to want something bigger and better for yourself, for your people,
totally,
for your customers. And if you don't want that, then, well, that can't help you either, even if you have people.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what does EOS do once ChatGPT is running the world by 2025?
Well, I don't really think that that's going to be the case. Oddly enough, a few of our implementers, we have 7 quarterly collaborative exchanges where our 700 plus EOS implementers come and they learn and grow together. Sure. Some people are like, oh, because we are building software. And it's really about execution and training and rollout and helping people get 80% strong in their business. But some people are like, the rumor has it that you're going to use AI and replace all implementers within 3 years. Well, the best analogy that I would have is if you have a doctor. Let's just say, you have a regular human doctor, and you had the choice to go to a different doctor that was absolutely perfect every single time. There was no error in their diagnosis or remedy, right? The surgeries were perfect. Everything was perfect. And you had a choice between the human that's full of possible errors and misdiagnosis and everything else. Would you go to the human doctor? Or would you go to the robot, the AI doctor? Well, of course you would go to the robot because there's no risk and it's perfect. And the results are excellent every single time. The reality is, though, that does not exist. And I don't think it's going to exist for the next 30 years. Sure. So we're not going to replace implementers. The human component that they bring to the table, feeling the human energy in a room, navigating that with a client together in that trust-based relationship. EOS implementers are not getting replaced anytime soon.
Sure. Yeah.
But if you could, anyone with the right mind would, of course, choose the perfect result.
Yeah, but even like the robot couldn't achieve the perfect result. And I think it's important too. It's like if I were to choose a therapist, if I was talking to a computer every day or I want the human connect. That's part of it. I need the human connection. And I think business is very similar to that in a lot of ways. I think it's like inviting somebody into your business in this way is very intimate. And I want a real relationship, a real human relationship as I do that. I don't want to, in a lot of ways, do it online, which I think is more importantly, is why a lot of people trust your implementers over than doing it themselves, because anybody can go do it themselves, and yet you still have 700 plus implementers. Why is that? Well, people do business with people. They enjoy human interaction, and they need that accountability that a human can provide. And so I think your business is proof of that.
Yeah. I mean, the connection, the community, I don't think any of that will ever be replaced, because I believe that we're just biologically hardwired for that level of community and connection. that is difficult to do. Interestingly, on that topic though, there was a study a few years ago, and you're 28, you said. So Friends, the show Friends, you probably heard of it, ever watched it.
Yeah, I missed it. Yeah.
Yeah. So they did a study, right, of friendships. Do you feel satisfied in your level of friendships? And so they took people, control group, proper research study, and the people who went out into the world and met regularly with friends, of course, reported that they have really good, trusting friend relationships. And then the control group who stayed in their places, they reported they had really bad friends and no friends. They were very lonely, so forth. And so they took that group and they had them watch the show Friends on a regular basis. And so the people who watched the show then later reported the same level of satisfaction with their friends, having connection, so forth, as watching TV, the show, versus actually having friends versus the control group who remained lonely. And so it is possible to have a sense of connection, to have a sense of community through other means than actually doing that. However, I don't think that that it goes so far.
Sure.
It doesn't go as far as navigating trauma or navigating, because in a lot of ways, what happens in a business with so many people, you have loss, you have gain, you have wins, you have all these different things going on a regular basis, and it's unpredictable. And so because it's unpredictable, only humans can react to that, at least for now.
Sure. Okay.
And then hopefully forever, but you never know. Can't rule it out.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
I've got at least like another 30 or 40 years ahead of me.
Yeah, well.
So I guess to conclude, if I'm a construction company, what are my options? If this sounds interesting, I want to explore it further. How do I get involved once more?
Yeah. So you can go to eosworldwide.com. And from there, you can get all the free resources you need to self-implement. You can learn about an implementer if that's what you'd like to do. You can go on our YouTube channel and learn about EOS until your eyeballs fall out.
Extraordinary, Mark. Well, I appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.